The story The Most Dangerous Game by Richard Connell. The theme of relations with nature has always been important for society. The attitude and understanding of this concept have been changing along with the development of society and technologies. The idea of the individual as a part of the world was replaced by the belief that human beings are the rulers of nature and have the right to exploit it. However, in the 20th century, the ideas of humanism and the wiser attitude to the plane promoted a new shift in the perspective on these relations. Animals and nature became sympathized, and the necessity to protect them emerged. This process could not remain unnoticed by literature, which has always been used as the main tool to reflect communities' moods and discuss some important ideas. The story The Most Dangerous Game by Richard Connell also touches upon this problem. The story offers a big game hunter from New York who arrived to hunt jaguars. However, because of the chain of events, he became hunted. Using a neutral tone at the start of the story, Connell introduces the main characters and their perspective on animals, whether they can think, and is it acceptable to haunt them. However, the tone alters when Rainsford becomes the victim and realizes the horror of being haunted and close to death. Changing roles, the author makes the readers feel what animals feel and understand their pain. It is a powerful method the writer uses to convey the central message. Thus, the purpose of Richard Connell's The Most Dangerous Game is to show how animals and humans are not so different when you look at it from a different perspective. The story narrated by Richard Connell opens in traditional and understandable ways. Two men discuss their would-be hunting in the area. However, from the very first lines, the author introduces the central idea of the story. Rainsford and Whitney speak about hunting and how it feels for a man and an animal. They introduce the question, which is central for understanding the story: who cares how a jaguar feels? Immediately, they also answer it, perhaps, the jaguar does, and support with the conclusion that they do not understand it. The beginning of the story ends with Rainsford falling into the water and realizing that he will not be able to return to the ship. It means that a new part of his journey on the island begins. In such a way, the author divides the whole story into two parts, which are living in normal conditions, or on board, and survival on the island. These two parts also have different moods and the main character's attitude to haunting. Rainsford is met by General Zaroff, who is also a haunter and shares his experiences with the main character. Thus, the story's climax comes after the main character's recognition that the ideal animal to hunt mentioned by the general is a human being. Rainsford also becomes hunted, with the idea that he has to survive for 3 days to win and return safely. In such a way, the roles switched, and the hunter became the victim. Rainsford starts realizing the feelings animals have when being close to death, such as fear, the desire to live, and struggle. As a result, he struggles with Zaroff to survive and return home. The final part of the story is devoted to Rainsford's attempts to survive and his struggle. The author shows how skills acquired when haunting help the main character to oppose the general and stay alive. These lines are also essential to understand the primary author's idea. Connell shows that a human being is also an animal that can be killed. Everything depends on the perspective and the distribution of power. It helps to correlate animal sufferings with the experiences Rainsford has while trying to avoid being killed and survive. At the end of the story, the main character probably kills the general, trying to protect himself. It might be viewed as an allusion to killing humans by animals when they also try to struggle for their lives. In such a way, the story narrated by Richard Connell touches upon the idea of haunting, its ethical side, and human nature. From the beginning of the story, Rainsford is sure that animals do not have feelings and that hunting is a good sport. However, the accident with the ship contributes to the reconsideration of his visions and the change of roles. The hunter becomes a victim, followed by another man with a gun. It helps to realize the horror of being in this situation, pain, and hope for survival. In such a way, the purpose of Richard Connell's The Most Dangerous Game is to show how animals and humans are not so different when you look at it from a different perspective. Using an unusual plot device, Connell shows that people prefer to disregard others' feelings to justify their actions and believe in their dominance over nature.